Hello. So this is another extension of the video I just did because a lot of the photos, the images didn't show in the beginning, and I was able to put a couple of them in there or like in the later part of the video. And I didn't do it right because I had too many screens open, so I wasn't sure if everything was showing correctly. But this video is just going to be dedicated solely to the images. They're going to be showing you pictures, might even extend it, but it's showing you pictures of Afro Latinos and Latinas, or or should we say e Latinas? So it's gonna show not only Latin, Afro Latin people. It's gonna also show Carib people, people from the Caribbean islands, people who are Cuban, people who are from Guatemala, people who are from Trinidad and Tobago, Carib people, people from Central America, people from Dominican Republic, people who are from these different countries, because there's this ignorance that is extremely prevalent on social media that these people are faceless and that they don't exist. And we have a lot of ignorance out there where people are stating that there's no such thing as Afro Latino when these people basically what it means, y'all, is if you are of African descent or you're, black, if you want to call yourself that, um, you were born in another country. You weren't born here in America. You were born in Central America, or you were born in Latin America, somewhere in a particular region. But that that doesn't mean you're not of the African descent race, per se. You can be a black person born in a different country and learn a different culture, learn a different language, grow up around a different culture other than what people here in the States, black people, which is a government name that was given, what we've experienced. You might have had a different set of experiences simply because you were born in a different country and you learned a different culture. And so that doesn't mean that you're not a black person, if you get what I'm saying. And so still, you can still have the African roots. You can still be a black person. You're just born on an island, or you're born in Central America, or you're born in Mexico. So I'm also going to be showing people like that. And so I'm just going to dedicate this particular one to the images. And some of these are going to be famous people. Some of them are going to be just, people that are from these countries. Some famous faces that you know, and this is people that right here are from Trinidad, and you may know some of these people. They're actresses, they're actors, they're singers, they're sports entertainers, they're well known popular faces that people have seen. Um, Now, this guy right here, I'm going to click into this image because I showed him earlier, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that he's Cuban. He's of Cuban descent. Well, Cubano, and although it has him on here, he would be considered like Afro Latino. So there are going to be some people that are like West Indian, like this guy, and we know who she is, don't we? We know who she is, and she's Trinidad um, culture. This is a player. He's Trinidadian descent. These are people that are, from they have mother and father, or one parent, or relatives, or they were born and they come from Trinidad. Famous people. Trinidad and Desmond's Trinidad. There might be some people visiting too, so don't get those people mixed up. But 12 black celebrities you may not have known were from Trinidad descent, and she's one. that is famous. A lot of people know who she is. Trinidadian, Trinidadian, Panamanians actually. What does this one say? Famous Panamanians on Pinterest. Panamania, um, Trinidad and Tobago. So sometimes they get things mixed up. Caribbean, I believe it's maybe Trinidad. Um, okay, all right. Let's see. Okay, so let me see if this is actually showing. Yeah, it is. Because I was worried because I was like, oh, it might not be showing. Okay, let me go into what I wanted to go into was people that are from Mexico because I thought that was important because there's this ignorance that there's no black Latinos. And so there's a lot of people that are spouting that off saying that there's no black Latinos. And so I was going to go in and I was going to go over some images again of, you know, I feel like people are doing this because they're trying to be super militant and they think it's helping their cause, but it isn't. Neil Long's Trinidadian. Um, okay, so let me go into this. Mm, okay, because I went into it earlier, so it'll pop back up easy. So these are people who are Afro Mexican. I'm just going over the images. You can see it. So if you didn't see it in my first video because it was rather long, and I have to say I'm sorry for that, but here's the images that I was looking at. These are images of people from Mexico, and they're of African descent. And it says Mexico officially recognizes, and I'll say it again, 1.38 million Afro-Mexicans in the national census as Black people. These are people that are still Black. They were born in a different country. You can see this. Look, it's just a different culture they grew up in. Different food, different type of food, different language, different languages, different culture, different style of dress. Okay, so African American, Latino world, Black Mexican founders of Los Angeles, California. See this guy here? So you people who are saying, "Oh, there's no Afro Latinos," you're doing a disservice, more a disservice, and dividing us more than helping us over one entertainer that you dislike. Think about all of the other people who embrace who they are. These are Afro Mexicans, y'all. Look at how they look. Some of these girls are as light as the one that people are saying that they don't like. And some of these women could go around, they could say, "Oh, I'm just Mexican. I'm not black." You know, maybe for a couple of reasons they say that. There could be multiple reasons. They're not from America. They weren't born here in the States, and so they don't go by the title black. They know they have African people in their family, but they don't call themselves black because they identify with a different culture because they didn't grow up here. They didn't learn the languages here. That English was not their first language. It was Spanish or it was a different culture that they learned. So they may not call themselves, but here the government gives us labels according to how they assume that we identify with or we look closer to. These people all um, they have you can see this here. They have very strong features, and you know what this is about. Okay, so history of blacks in Mexico, African Mexican influences. And so I'm actually going to click on the page because a lot of people are really, really sad. And so I really, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And apparently a lot of people have brains that are made of scrambled eggs, I suppose. So, the history of African or Afro Mexicans. Afro Mexican influence in Mexico. For those of you who are claiming there's no such thing as black people in Mexico and there's no Afro Latinos, listen to this. The history of the black race in Mexico is both illuminating and mysterious. What makes the story of especially profound is the lack of documentation and discussion on the subject. Exactly. I have to agree on that. Scholars have long been acquainted with the history of slavery in Mexico. In fact, long before the first Spanish galleons appeared on the horizon, the practice of slavery was common among several indigenous tribes in Mexico. So while it may be said that the Spanish did not invent slavery, they nonetheless relied upon it to expand their empire and to increase their already enormous wealth. So the same thing that happened in America happened in the Latin countries, y'all. So there were slaves in these Latin countries. Let's go digger a little bit deep in this. For those of you that claim that you think that there are no Afro Latinos, as the colonial period in Mexico unfolded, in particular during the 16th and 17th centuries, the indigenous population became decimated by disease. To make up for the labor shortage, African slaves, let me say that again, African slaves were brought to Mexico to toil in the sugar fields and work in underground mines, worth 4 times more than their indigenous Indian counterparts. These African slaves were highly prized for their reported physical endurance and stamina in the hot tropical sun. Who is this guy? Wow, he is a very important figure in Mexico and in Veracruz, to be exact. Made to work under horrendous conditions on the sugar plantations of coastal Veracruz, attempting to escape from their captors was the only viable option for these enslaved Africans. Those that were successful fled to the areas high mountains ranges where jungle and canyons could hide and shelter them. Indigenous Indians also fled to these remote areas and joined forces with the escaped African slaves. Oh, for those of you people who claim that no Indians mixed with the slaves, that you're wrong. You're wrong. They did. There were some that did. Yeah. And then there were some that actually had children with them. And some of us that you see here in America might be part of that, might have had families that were from this, more than likely. So it goes on to say that forming communities and families. Let me read that again for those of you that think there are no black Latinos, there are no Indian people that are mixed with blacks. Let's read that again. Indigenous Indians also fled to these remote areas and joined forces. They joined forces with the escaped African slaves, forming communities and families. A famous rebellion in Mexico, which is extremely famous in history, led by African slaves named this guy, this statue you see here, Jasper Yanga, around the year of 1570, believed to be the member of the royal house of Gabon. Africa, this hero was responsible for leading his fellow black slaves in a successful revolt. Under Yanga's leadership, these slaves were able to escape to safety in the highlands of Veracruz. Where's Veracruz? In Mexico. For those of you that think no blacks, there's no black Latinos. Okay, so remarkably, after 30 years of living in the mountains, Yanga was able to negotiate a treaty with the Spanish. And of course, he had to speak Spanish. Yeah, he had to speak Spanish and be able to communicate with the Spaniards. So there are black Latinos. So this treaty was hard won, and to negotiate this, okay, so it goes on to say only obtained after great hardship. So, however, in the end, Yanga achieved his desired goal of his community remaining. He remained free. So today, the town of Yanga in Veracruz is living testimony to his incredible achievement, and this statue is there to prove it. That's one of the statues. So the mingling of blood. Let me say that again. The mingling. What does mingling mean? A mixing? Yeah, a mixing. Mestizo, the mingling of blood that occurred between the Spanish and indigenous Indians of Mexico also took place with African slaves. So, you people who are silly and don't understand that there are blacks who have a mix of Indian blood in them, have a mix of the Latin blood in them, it exists. And it goes far back, even in history. Let me read that line again. The mingling of blood that occurred between the Spanish and indigenous Indians of Mexico also took place with African slaves. Historians differ on actual numbers of slaves brought to Mexico during the colonial expansion. Some scholars believe 200,000 slaves were brought to Mexico for manual labor purposes, while others believe the true number totaled far more, upwards of 500,000. Some of the blood of these enslaved blacks commingled. What is commingled, you guys? Mixing together with co commingled with that of the indigenous Indians as well as the Spanish. So the third root of the mestizo race is a topic seldom acknowledged. Let me read that again for the young lady that said mestizo had nothing to do with Africans, which it very well does, and it states it right here. Some of the blood of these enslaved blacks commingled with that of the indigenous Indians as well as the Spanish. This third root of the mestizo race is a topic seldom acknowledged. Even in America, apparently, you got blacks who don't admit that we're mixed with different things. And some of us don't even like it. And we won't even admit it. And some of us don't even know. We're walking around, we're mixed with stuff and don't even know. Some of us can't even go back and pinpoint all the people in our family because of what has happened throughout history to those people in our family, all of the mixing and all of the moving around of people. And so and the broken up families. So traditionally, the mestizo race is identified as being a mixture of European and indigenous Indian blood. In truth, it can also include the blood of Africans. Let me read that again for those people who don't seem to understand. Traditionally, the mestizo race is identified as being a mixture of European and indigenous Indian blood. But in truth, meaning the truth is, it can also include the blood of Africans. Over the years of this bloodline has been absorbed into the fabric of the Mexican population. The first blacks to come to Mexico, as well as their descendants, have greatly influenced Mexican culture. Throughout the centuries, Afro Mexicans have made enormous contributions to the country and deserve recognition for their many accomplishments. Afro Mexicans share a rich history and count heroes and presidents as well amongst their ancestors. Vicente Guerrero, a mulatto and Mexican, which is mestizo, I believe, right? Yeah, yeah, he's African and Mexican. He's mixed. Yeah, mestizo. Like the young lady was saying, oh no, no, that's not black. That's not black. There's no African in there. Yes, it is. Okay, you're totally wrong. So it says he was the second president as a hero in Mexico. The War of Independence from Spain. The state of Guerrero in Mexico was named in his honor. His grandson Vicente Riva Palacio and Guerrero was one of Mexico's most influential politicians and novelists. So, in addition, one of the most prestigious generals in Mexican War of Independence, Jose Mar Telco or Telco. I may not be for saying it. Morelos Pav. So it looks like there's some question marks that are kind of bleeping things in. So that's what makes it complicated. But it was a mulatto as well. So these are other people who they're saying Jose Mar Teclo Morelos Pav. Okay, so these are okay, I get it now. These are terms that were used for mulatto as well. Okay, so there were terms, and I have to go more into that, but I'm not going to go into that. I'm sorry. There's like a hierarchy, and then there's different groups, people they would put together that were mezcla, which is mixed, like different couples that were mixed, and they had different terms for them. So like Pav, Morelos, Teclo, Mar, Hos, and so I believe that's what it meant. Because I think I seen it. I was thumbing through, I was studying some stuff, and I think I seen it. And there were all these different couples, and you have one person that's light, one person that's Spaniard, one person that is African, and then they make a baby, and then they name the baby according to the mix of the parents, what the parents, the result of what the parents have offspring is. So if you get my drift, so Afro Mexicans have also greatly contributed to Mexico's rich heritage to dance, music, and song. So the famous carnival celebrated in Coy- Coyolilo in Veracruz has Mexican or has actually African origin, and Mexican food, language, and spiritual practices have been influenced by the descendants of black slaves. Let me say that. DOS, which always on social media people are hollering about, Afro Mexicans also, they have also greatly contributed to Mexico's rich heritage of dance, music, and song. The famous carnival celebrated its Coyolilo in Veracruz has African origins. Mexico's food, language, spiritual practices have been influenced by the descendants of black slaves. Okay, black immigrants to the country must be recognized and included in the equation as well. Many fled to Mexico during the years of slavery in the U.S., seeking asylum and refuge. So, guess what, y'all? We were going over there looking for a better world. Just like they were coming here, people are coming seeking asylum. Well, we were going there trying to seek asylum because we didn't want to have to be succumbed to some of the racism that was going on here in some of these states. So many Afro Mexicans reside on Mexico's Pacific coast in an area known as Costa Chica region. This stretch is a coastline that starts just south of Acapulco and extends approximately 200 miles. Fishing and agriculture are the mainstays of the economy in Costa Chica. Afro-Mexican communities can also be found in states like Guerrero, Oaxaca, because I pulled that up in that other video, um, Machoa, I may not be saying that, Veracruz, and Campeche, and Quintana Roo, and the Yucatan. Okay, so I think this is Michoacan or something like that. So if I'm not saying it correctly. So Jose Maria Morelos. Okay, so Pavon. Okay, so let me see. I don't know if I can find that picture, but that has something to do with this guy right here. His name, he was a mulatto as well. This guy is mulatto. But what I was trying to say, where are those pictures of the people? Okay, description. Okay, so let me just get back on what I was on. I just thought this was important to mention this because people were going around saying there's no Afro Latinos. Like we didn't have no history there, and there's deep roots there, you know. But anyway, let me go back on to what I was on. I was on. The history of blacks in Mexico, black people erased from history. Negrita, which is a black woman that is probably Afro Latino, Latina rather. These are African Mexican, Afro Mexican activists who fight for the constitutional recognition in Mexico. See? And so I just wanted to go over some, I'm flipping through the pictures really quick so you can see the faces of these people. Okay, and so now let me see if I can find there was something, I think I was trying to say it. Maybe that's why they named him that. Okay, okay. I know descriptions. Mm, okay, let me see if that'll come up. I was trying to find it. Okay, so descriptions of race in Latin America based on hierarchy. Okay, I'll see if I can, so that you guys don't think that I'm just making it up. Latin American racial hierarchy is like a totem pole. So they have Criollo, Peninsular, Indio, Negro, Negro, Indio, Criollo. So look, there's different layers. You see this? The names. I'm trying to see if I can find it. Mestizo with a lighter skin tone. That's a mix of something. Mestizos with darker skin tone. You can be dark and still be mestizo. So white, Mexican, mestizo, racial hierarchy in Mexico, and meridians, mestizos with lighter skin tone, mestizos with darker skin tones. So they have these like totem poles. It's all over the place, y'all. You see it? It's like a totem pole. So what I said, the darker skins are at the bottom, and the lighter skin, the lighter, the more closer to the European descent, you're at the top of the hierarchy totem pole. And so you don't think I'm making it up, and it ain't no fake ass news. It's the truth, and they won't tell you this. So I'm giving it to you. So here it is right here. Spaniards are at the top, and the Africans are at the back, based at the bottom, based on your phenotype. So it starts from the bottom up. So the bottom is like a phenotypically African descent, phenotypically indigenous descent. Even the indigenous people, y'all, they're too dark. They're at the bottom. Zambos, people of mixed indigenous African ancestries. Anybody that, and it's still African mulattoes. Those are people of mixed European and African ancestries. Mestizo, people of mixed European indigenous ancestries, because they thought that those people were only Indian and European. But we learned something different, didn't we? They don't have to necessarily be just European and indigenous people and Indian. They can also be African descent as well. So Creoles, they have another way of saying Creoles, but in Louisiana they say Creole. Um, Offsprings of Spaniards born in America, and then at the top is Spaniard phenotypically white individuals born in Spain, because they're supposed to be the highest on the totem pole. So the Aryan race, you see all the different hierarchies here? These are the best images about race or hierarchy. Pinterest Declaration of Spanish in Australia. That's in Australia. And that's how they, everywhere there's certain descriptions on how they look at people. And so here it is right here. This is and so this right here was classically known as mestizo. So whoever was looking at that, they were looking at something wrong. Really, mestizo can be also of African blood. You can have African blood and you can be mestizo. Okay, so anybody enslaved persons brought from Africa and the Caribbean islands, you notice they put them always at the bottom, and so there's like a totem pole, and so and it's not only in the Latin countries, it's also Latin America, Latin American colonial society, and so it shows you all the ways that they separate people by race. So there was something, it was like a picture, they even do it in Asia. You see this? Croatian. Chilean, or they're doing all the different people, the different races and stuff, okay, hierarchies and stuff. This is in Spanish to Australia. Okay, so even Hitler, these are people, race, ethnicity in Latin America. So they have a lot of problems in Latin country based on race, y'all. So that's the reason why when you get those people that come over here and they start talking about, oh, you look like a roach, oh, you look like this, you look like that, they're not happy with how they look. They're not happy with themselves. You notice that? They're not happy with themselves. When they go to their country, people don't accept them over there. And over here, from what I'm seeing, some people over here don't accept them over here. Little do you know, but there's a lot. You can look all of this up, but mestizo is not just Indian and European, y'all. Africans can have mestizo mix. It can be mestizo. So, they always say it was Caucasian and Indian as mestizo. That's not true. That's not true. So that was the old what people thought. So this is the main ethnic groups in Brazil. See, they even have their way of hierarchy. Pardo, there's that word. Pardo, mulatto, pasfuso, caboclo, pucara, and nocor, white, black, Indian, and pardo, that word. Yellow, which is Mongoloid, Asian. Um, there was one, oh, I see the picture. I'm getting close to it. This is the one I was looking for. It had actual how skin color is stratification in Latin America related to colonialism. That was the image that I was looking for, and it's on this page. I think there's an even bigger image somewhere else. So, flip slide. But this right here, I don't know if people can see it. I was trying to show a bigger version of it. But, you know, the US is not the only one that has problems with race. Okay. Class goals. Okay, so let me see here. This has to do history of colorism in the US, what the role did colorism plays during slavery, how did colorism operate during the 20th century. And so somebody did a whole report on this because this is a big problem. And so even people trying to whiten their skin. So let me go back to the one picture because that's too much. That's getting into deep in that. Let me see if I can find it. I was trying to get to it. It was this picture right here. If there's a close up of this image, underneath has descriptions. This is in Latin America. Probably the owner took it off because it raised a big fuss because I don't know if the image will still show or not. Maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, because this picture that I'm showing you here, if you get a close up on it, underneath all of those couples, okay, let me just break it down to you. It has to do with complexions in Latin America. 50 Shades of Black is what it's called. The different kinds of castes. It was a caste system, and I still think it happens. So Latino is an ethnicity, not a race. Yep, exactly. So liberation theology of Latin America versus Black theology of South Africa. So this gets deep. It has to do with the colonial period, indigenous and African slaves, 350 years plus 10 plus million Africans, complex system of categorization based on race, Mexican castas. Okay, legacy of these labels. There were labels. See, that's part of it right there, y'all. If how you looked, who your parents were, and how your kids will turn out, what they look like. Male-led colonization, extractive labors. Okay, so Mexican castas. Okay, I'm kind of teaching people stuff, but I know some people won't listen and others will because they realize, oh, this shit is real. It isn't fake. I'm not making it up, you know. Okay, so this is what I was looking for. I was trying to get a blow up version of it. But if you look, there's like a, okay, Espanol con Indio. Okay, so if you're Spanish and Indian, your kid, supposedly back then, you were considered a mestizo. Okay, if you're mestizo and Spanola, your kid was, I can't even say it. I said it, Catizo. I don't know if I can see it. The words are so muddled. If you're Morisco with Espanol, you're Chino. And so that's like Asian almost. That's what is considered Asian. Mulatto and Espanola is Morisco. Chino and India is Salta Altas. They had labels for everybody. So you see, it was a caste, and the Mexican caste system. Lobo with Chino is Prebarrio, and see all the names. That's to show you they had a huge problem with labeling people over there. So for you people that think that it's just, oh, it only happens in America, and there were no black people in Mexico. There's no black Latinos. That's wrong. So what did I say? Afro Latinos. Okay, let's look at some African Cubans. I think I did the Afro Mexican pretty good. So um, Afro Cubans, and then I'm gonna end it with that because people just really they don't care, and it's, you can see these are the images. These are African people, black people who are Cuban. There may be some famous people we might run across, but this is Cuba. Look who's in Cuba. All the people who say there's no Afro Latinos. That is part of Latin America. Cuba is part of Latin America, and look who's all there. It's all in that country. Cecilia Cruz, that's what she was, the singer, Cecilia Cruz. For those of you that, if you listen to salsa music, there's a famous lady who was named Cecilia Cruz. She was an Afro Cubana woman, and she was one of the best Latin artists around, Cuban Latin artist, female artist around. And so she was very prolific in her style of music, Cuban music, salsa, to be exact. Um, these are people that are from Cuba that are Latin, black, Cubano, Cubana. You can see that. Anyway, I'm gonna end this, even famous people, and so I'm gonna end it with Cecilia Cruz. For those of you who say there's no Afro Latinos, she is Cuban. I actually listen to a lot of her music. I think her kids. Okay, so anybody that says there's no African in Latin America, you're a liar. You're lying, and you're making up stories, and you just really don't, and you don't read anything. And so they okay, so I think she's, let's see, she might be a mix of stuff. Hey, Mom. Okay, hi. So okay, so salsa music singer, salsa. Let's see. Here she is right here. Okay, let me see if I can find her image. Her image. Those of you that don't know who the singer is, let me see. I think I'm gonna try to look her up too. Okay, because I want to make for sure, because I believe she has a lot to do with Cuba too. Yeah, I just want to be for sure, so you guys don't think I'm just making it up. But She has strong Cuban roots. She is Cuba. Okay, from Cuba. Okay, so it says Cuban exile who's in passion. Yeah, so I was right. Because I know I had read some stories. There was also a movie about her, several movies about her. So, born October 21st, 1925, in Havana, Cuba, she died July 16, 2003, Fort Lee, New Jersey, USA. Cause of death was brain cancer. Okay, so her spouse was Pedro Knight, 41 years old at the time. Okay, so let me see. Parents Catalina, Alfonso, Simon Cruz. Okay, it shows her net worth. Okay, so genre. Her music was Cuban traditions, jazz, Latin jazz, Latin pop, mambo, salsa, tropical, and world fusion. And so Cuban exile, whose impassioned songs ooze nostalgia for natural beauty of her homeland, earning her the title of Queen of Salsa. And so that's where she's from. See? Cecilia Cruz. For those of you who say there's no black Latinas and no black Latinos, stop lying, making up stories. Okay, so anyway, here she is here. Let me see. Hopefully I got that on here. Let me put her picture in here if you didn't see it. And so if you didn't see it, I'm gonna put her picture in here. And I'm gonna end it. Cecilia Cruz, who is Cuban Latina, and she was one of the best Black Latina salsa artists around. So for those of you who I guess been living under a rock, and you were in this deep denial that blacks had no influence in these Latin countries, and you know you're out there saying this, and you're not helping us at all by doing this. But anyway, with that being said, I'm going to leave this on this right here. So they do exist. There is Latinos and Latinas. Okay, that is not fake. It does exist. We live around them. We breathe. We eat. Work around them. Everything. So